أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد. One day the Prophet ﷺ, when he was with his companions in Medina, after the Fajr prayer, the morning prayer, he turned around and he addressed his companions and he said, "Which amongst you today is fasting?" And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said, "I am." Then he said, "Which amongst you today has fed a poor person?" And he said, "I am." And then he said, "Which amongst you has visited a sick person today?" And again he said, "I am." And then the fourth question, "Which amongst you today has followed a janazah or a burial?" And again for the fourth time Abu Bakr, he said, "I am." The Prophet ﷺ then he said, "Whoever does these four things in one day, in a single day, these four things, then this person will most certainly enter into Jannah." So what we learn from this hadith, that this was the habit or the rituals of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, that he did these actions not knowing that the Prophet on this day would ask, "Who is doing such and such deed and such and such deed and such and such deed?" It was just the habit and the ritual that these were the practice of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, that he was doing these deeds, not saying, "I do these, I do these, I do this," but he was asked, and it was from his nature that he would do secret good deeds, that he wouldn't go out and openly show people. One thing you learn from this hadith, that it was at the time of the morning prayer. Early in the morning already visited the sick. Early in the morning already attended janazah. Early in the morning already did all these things, feeding a sick person. So it shows you the nature of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that he was doing secret good deeds that people did not know about. And there's some narrations of people he used to look after them, and they didn't know who he was, but then they only found out later on that Abu Bakr used to look after these people when he passed away. And those people, that no one was looking after them anymore. This, my brothers and sisters, it goes against the world that we lived in today. The world that we live in today is, alhamdulillah, very connected. You're connected to what's going on in any globe or any part of the world. And so the danger of this is that it becomes difficult to do good deeds that are a secret between you and Allah Azza wa Jal. Rather, this concept of private good deeds or private actions, it is diminishing. And it impacts a person's sincerity. In fact, you find today much of the opposite. So you'll find videos of famous influencers, and their genre or their category is that they go around donating, they go around helping others to look for a reaction. And this is a famous, you'll find it on YouTube, that today's video we're going around, we're giving this much food or this much expensive items to people. There's hidden camera, and so people find, they subscribe to this, and they generate popularity over something like this. We're not saying it's necessarily wrong, but the reality is then the good deeds is being done for the camera. And some of these influencers, they've gone on to talk about how the mental strain on them now because they need to create new content. because they've built millions of followers, they have thousands of subscribers, they've built this fan base, and now they need to come up with new content to keep their fan base. So it no longer became about the sincerity of doing good deeds, but it became about that revenue generation model, or attracting an audience, or becoming famous, and all of these things, which it pulls away a person from the sincerity of doing those deeds. As people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter and the hisab, meaning the accountability, then this is something that we have to constantly worry about, and something that we have to constantly question in our own very good deeds. So why do we do the good actions that we do? In the actions of the recitation of the Quran, of the coming here on Friday, then we need to think to ourselves, what is the nature behind, what is driving us to do good actions? Why do we send our kids to madrasa? Do we send our kids to madrasa so people can say, oh, mashallah, this brother, his son is so good, and you become known? Or are you doing it for the goodness of bringing them closer to Allah Azza wa Jal? So all of these things, it should become a part of our nature to do hisab, or reckoning upon ourselves on questioning why we are doing certain actions. This was the warning of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said to Abu Hurairah in a hadith in Sahih Muslim that the first people to enter Jahannam, is it the people who didn't pray? The people who did drugs, who did all these sins? He didn't say these are the first people to enter into Jahannam. He said that the first person to enter into Jahannam was a person who recited the Quran. Allahu Akbar. A person who recited the Quran is the first to enter into Jahannam. Or in some narrations, an alim, a scholar. And then another category, or a second person, he said, was a person who gave charity. A person who gave sadaqah. The people first to enter into Jahannam. How is this so? And he gave us the hadith that Allah will ask this alim, or this reciter, on the day of judgment, I gave you this knowledge of the Quran. What did you do with it? And that person will say, oh, I taught for your sake, I spread the knowledge of Islam. And Allah will say, no, you are a liar. And the angels will say, no, you are a liar. And Allah will say to the person who gave charity, I gave you all this wealth, what did you do with it? And that person will say, oh, I spread charity here, there. And Allah will say, no, you are a liar. And the angels will say, no, you are a liar. You did such and such deeds, so that the people can say, wow, look at this person with their actions. Wow, the things that this so-and-so, and that was the reward you wanted in the life, and that was the reward you got. And these are the first of the people to enter into Jahannam. It is a very serious matter. And that is why Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in Surah Al-Furqan, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. Allah, He talks about the deeds of the criminals, the wrongdoing people. He calls them the mujrimeen, but He's talking about their good deeds. He says, and whatever they did of good deeds, it will be reduced to scattering dust. So these are people that they could have prayed, they could have recited of the Quran, they could have done sadaqah. He said that their good deeds are like scattering dust, because they did it to show off, to show the people that I'm such and such person. He says, هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ الْغَاشِيَةِ وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ خَاشِعَةٌ. The overwhelming event, meaning the day of judgment. On that day, some faces will be filled with fear. عَامِلَةٌ نَاصِبَةٌ. What is عَامِلَةٌ نَاصِبَةٌ? They've worked so hard, they've put so much effort. They're fatigued in all of their efforts of their work that they did, but it was not with a sincere intention. So this is not people who sat back, they were lazy, they did nothing. These were people who might have done good action, but seeking the attention and the pleasure of the people. My dear brothers and sisters, we should know that the shaitan, he finds different ways to mislead.